Welcome back to the Darius Gant Show. I'm your host, Darius Gant, as well as founder and CEO of Tesoro AI, where we help innovative founders and executives scale their AI solutions and AI teams. On this podcast, we focus on cutting-edge technology, more specifically, artificial intelligence. By getting up close and personal with visionary AI founders and executives, we learn exactly what steps they're taking to build AI solutions, as well as the real-world problems that are being solved in business and in real life. In this episode, we sit with Adrian Ferrero, who is the founder of a company by the name of Biome Makers. At Biome Makers, the goal of what they're building is to enhance the productivity of arable soil and improve soil health. Both Adrian and his co-founder have a history dating back to grade school. They've been a dynamic duo since then and have been recruited from their home in Spain all the way to Silicon Valley to help lead the charge in deploying artificial intelligence in ag tech. If you or your team is considering building out an AI solution, be sure to reach out to the team here at Tesoro AI. We've assembled leading experts in data science and machine learning. So whether it's AI strategy, staff augmentation, data labeling, or custom AI software development, we've got a strong team here that has your back. So head over to www.tesoroai.com. All right, folks, let's hop into the show and hear from Adrian. All right, Adrian, thanks for joining us on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So you're originally from Spain. What city in Spain are you originally from?
I'm originally from a small city in the northwest called La Bañeza, but the province, the area is Castilla and León.
Okay, awesome. As I mentioned to you before, I spent some time in Madrid. I didn't actually get up to your area, but Spain was definitely a country that I loved. My time, I got a chance to go to Las Fallas de Valencia and I didn't get to go to La Tomatina, but that's still on the list.
That's very good. Well, the reality is that I haven't spent much time in Spain since we started building startups, because in 2015 we traveled, we moved to San Francisco, and we have been in California since then.
Okay, and did you actually move in 2015, or had you been in California earlier?
No, that was the first time I was in California.
Okay, nice. And are you still in the San Francisco area?
We moved a little bit farther from the Bay. Now we are in Sacramento area in the Yolo County. So, actually I live in Davis.
What was the motivation to move? Because most folks, right, technology, let's go to San Francisco and build our team out there. What was the motivation to move outside of San Francisco?
Well, the motivation of moving outside of San Francisco is because our business model requires to have a well lab. And building a well lab facility is not as easy in the Bay. So we found a perfect spot in West Sacramento, which is like just 10 miles from Davis. And there we also had a partnership with one of the most interesting players in the agriculture industry, which is Bayer Crop Science.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That definitely helps to be next to someone who can help you build.
Yeah. Actually, it's one of our clients, and we do a lot of collaborations with them and also other players in the industry as well.
So you all have an interesting use case in artificial intelligence in that you guys are focused in the agricultural industry, right? I would love to get some more background in terms of how you discovered the pain point that exists in this space and where the idea for Biome Makers actually came from.
For us, Biome Makers, the second company that we built, Alberto Acedo, my co-founder, and myself, the first one was the first genetic diagnostic center specialized in DNA sequences focused in human diseases. So that company grew a lot, and we sold the company, and then we realized that we could utilize what we learned in this other startup to solve one of the most interesting problems or relevant problems in agriculture, which is having reliable information about how biology is impacting all the plant growing processes, and specifically in the soil. Growers, the farmers, don't have information about these biological processes. And with the sequencing technologies, you could utilize, or let me say, digitalize biological data on the community of microbes populating the soil, and then using intelligent computing or AI, then you can understand how this community of microbes as a network, as a fully connected network, as a community, is impacting the farmers. So that's how we came up with the idea of building biomakers. And we moved to San Francisco because we were lucky on being the first non-American company selected by Illumina Accelerator, which is Illumina's largest genetic company in the world. And they invited us to join the second batch of startups. And that was the beginning of everything.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, right, I know nothing about agriculture. I know nothing about biology, right? But it's these microbiomes that are helping to fertilize the soil, and the farmers are in some way leveraging this to be able to grow, to produce more or produce higher quality crops.
Exactly. Let me make an analogy. If we compare human body, no, how we work, so we breathe, we eat, we make digestion, we have the skin to protect us against diseases, and so on. So there are some metabolic processes that are happening when in the body, no, and around the body, and the microbes have a crucial role on these activities. Digestion, for instance, we will not be able to eat properly without the bacteria in our guts. No? So in plants, when we bring these concepts into agriculture, it's pretty much the same. Plant growing is about feeding, and the feeding process happening in the soil. So the mobilization of nutrients, the decomposition of the nutrients to make them available for the plants happen in the soil. And also the microbes are the main players doing these activities. And also when it comes to diseases, for instance, impacting the plant growth or whatever, it's also about pathogens, both bacteria, fungal pathogens, and also biocontrol species, right? And also how the plant is going to be stressed because salinity, because heavy metal solubilization, different variables, also hormone adaptation. Well, there are different metabolic processes that are which origin is the soil, and the soil microbiome is the main player to let's say deliver or build these processes.
Okay. Very interesting. And so what is it exactly that microbiome is doing? Are we understanding the makeup of the microbiomes that are in the soil and then making a prediction on the changes that should happen to get you at the optimal state for plant production?
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the previous situation that something is happening underground, but you don't have any clue on what it is, no? Beyond that, you see how the plant is growing. Now we can deliver or develop metrics really to measure all the biological activities in the soil. So from having no information to having this information profile and defined specifically. So when it comes to how we are doing this, because that was a completely new dimension of data. Before, yeah, underground was like we were completely blind. Now we see that. So the way we have to do this is by first understanding how to profile this community of microbes. DNA sequencing, because we look at the DNA of the microbes. Keep in mind that humans just know 1% of the microbes in the world. But because we have these sequencing technologies, DNA-based technologies, now even without knowing which are the names of the microbes, we can see them or we can digitalize them. And then we do taxonomic associations of the different, let's say, microbes that we identified in the soil. That's the first step, right? Second step is really to understand what are the interactions between all the microbes. So there are positive concurrencies, negative concurrencies, synergies, dependencies, so different relationships, different ecological relationships, and we need to decode this in a way that makes sense. And the way we decode this is by using, well, let me say, the same technology that Facebook is using to analyze social networks. So imagine how relevant are the different nodes when you talk about groups of people. There is persons that are key to connect others to other people and groups of people. And so it's a network, actually. But we apply this into ecology. We use artificial intelligence to decode the ecology. And once you have understand all these relations and you are able to model and predict any pathway that is going to happen in the soil, then you have to compare because, well, you don't know how tall you are unless you compare yourself with the rest of the world. Then you can determine if you are taller or shorter, right? So building a reference on soil microbiome all around the world for different crops is what we have been doing in the last 5 years. So we have these 3 steps to really deliver a solution value to farmers. And what is useful for? First, optimization of the fertility, so fertilization plants. Now there is a transition from, let me say, conventional agriculture or the use of agrochemicals into more biological practices or bioactive practices, because we can benefit from biological processes instead of just substituting them. Now, if we learn how to use the biology in our benefit, and then we complement it with some additional inputs or practices, then we have the perfect mixture to grow plants that are going to be healthier, so better quality and better quantity as well. We need more food because we're more and more people every year.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what were the farmers doing originally? Is it, I'm just going to leverage my experience to guess maybe what fertilizers or what I need to do with the soil to yield the highest and healthiest crop production? Was
Yeah. For the last 40 years, farmers have been using the tools that they have available, mainly the agrochemicals, NPK, which is the basic nutrients for the plant. So you directly add them to the soil. Let's say everything was based on chemical information and chemical data. Or if you are designing a fertilization plan, the only tools you have are those ones. So you make a soil test, the physicochemical soil test, you detect the level of nitrogen or phosphorus in the soil is very low, so you add it. That was the way they were doing. What happened that most of the times we were losing the natural fertility of the soil, which is an incredible valuable asset. So, and that's the reason because now we are in the biotech era. So biotechnology is bringing new products, new solutions, perform in a very good way, biostimulants. So you can even stimulate, stress the plant in a certain direction that you get sweeter food, more acidic food. No?
When you
So
say stimulate, do you literally mean like push?
yeah, if you stress a plant, imagine for instance in vineyards,
Okay.
right? The grape is very sweet. But if you don't feed the plant with a lot of nutrients, then the plant starts to stress and the fruit is going to have different flavor. No? So you can somehow play or drive your farming to get some specific characteristics in the fruit or in the crop that you are growing.
So now historically is a chemical-based approach where it's, look, we're missing X amount of whatever nutrients, right? Let's go and buy a bag of whatever and add it to the soil.
Yeah, and sometimes the way you were able to diagnose what was happening in the soil was by looking at the plant. And then if the leaves, usually the leaves has a different color or some spots or something, then you say, well, there is a lack of whatever, right? And then you add that specific nutrient. The reality is that you might have that nutrient in the soil, but the biology, that nutrient is not being mobilized properly towards the plant. There is a competition in the soil for that nutrient. So at the end, you are spending money in an input that is not useful, is not valuable, and is not going to be increasing your yield. So now we're in a different momentum, and AI help us to really get there.
I guess, what's the process? Like, if I'm a farmer, do I collect a soil sample and send it to you? How do I actually get these insights?
All this complex technology that I explained from the farmer point of view is very easy because, as you mentioned, you just collect a sample of soil. So it's actually, this is the kind of tube that we use, very small one. And what is important is that you collect from different points from the site. So you get a representation on the soil microbiome in that specific field, in that specific site. Once we receive the sample in our lab, we will go through an DNA genetic process, a DNA-based workflow to digitalize the DNA of the different microbes in that sample. And then we do computing-based, we have our cloud-based system to compute all the data that we generate, that you can imagine. A lot of data per sample. And at the end, what you are going to receive is a report that can be printed in a PDF, or you can just play with the data online with the tool, the app that we have developed, or you can go to your precision agriculture platform, because we will be connected to them, and the results will go straight to that third-party system. So you will have all the information from your field that is relevant in the same place.
Got it. So the farmer is really, if I'm thinking about ROI here, right? It's one, I'm going to spend less money. I'm going to spend less money on what do we call it? The nutrients that I would be adding to the soil, ideally. And then my crop yield is going to be higher. So potentially I'm going to be able to sell more in the market.
Exactly. There are like three main values that you are going to get. Sometimes you save money because you optimize the farming inputs, the crop inputs that you are going to use. But usually what you get is an efficiency in the applications. Okay, so that means that you are going to increase the yield and the quality of the crop. And this is going to be reflected in probably in a higher market price, because consumers value a lot those farmers that are caring for their landscape. Okay, and we like to eat really healthy food, and healthy food comes from healthy soils, and healthy soils are those that are alive, because only living things can be healthy. So you cannot think about healthy soil that doesn't have a lot of activity, a lot of bioactivity itself. So that's like the first outcome. You increase the yield, you increase the quality, you can get a better market share. And now it's becoming very interesting, the opportunity of monetize the better farming practices by generating carbon credits, which means that you are capturing carbon in your soil, so you can commercialize those credits and sell that capacity to third parties that need, well, those credits to keep moving forward on their activities.
So if I go back to the conversation around like some of the insights you're providing, the first thing you need is to understand what biome or what microbes actually exist, and then how they're connected, right? So there's this network of microbes, how they're connected, and the impact that that's going to have on the soil and then crop production. I imagine that changes depending on the soil type and maybe region, what someone's growing. So we would love to learn more. We're talking about artificial intelligence here, about the data, right? The data that you needed to collect to be able to eventually arrive at these predictions. So how did you even start your data journey?
Yeah, that was a very interesting journey, because as I mentioned, we generate a layer of data, but that layer itself, it doesn't have any value. So we started to mix this data with other sources of data, like type of soil, farming practices, weather, location, climate, because our assumption was, okay, soil microbiome is a biomarker, which means that it's going to be impacted by anything that is happening in the field, mainly anthropogenic intervention, so the influence of the humans, so the farming practices, but also weather, location, climate, soil type, the kind of crop that you have is going to impact as well. Not all the crops can be compared between them. No? You cannot compare apples with potatoes. No? You have to compare apples with apples. That's, well, in soils, it happens pretty much the same when it comes to biological activity. So collecting this data was not very difficult, because the willingness of the farmers to provide this data to really decode what is happening at the ecological level in the soil, that was very, very nice. They were very open to share this data.
Okay.
And also there are plenty, there are a lot of data accessible on soil maps, like geology and the morphology of the soil. So there are also the weather data, climate data, historical data. So there are plenty of data that we are just collecting. So we just connect. And the only data point that we need for our clients is to know the location of the farm that we are analyzing. With that location, we can access to a pool of data that is feeding the system and teaching how to make this functional interpretation. And right now we are doing supervised training of the system, but hopefully not far in the time we'll be able to do unsupervised because the system is continuously learning as we add data points in and building different references on the microbes and comparing and creating those patterns, those models that at the end the final goal is to be able to say, well, in this situation, if we change or we influence in this direction, the effect is the end result is going to be positive. So build a prediction on how to increase the yield and how to increase the sustainability of the soil. Keep in mind that soil is the main asset for farmers. I mean, vertical farming is amazing and it's a good opportunity, but it's not going to be itself feeding the whole planet. We need to combine soil and we need to combine other sources of food to generate food, because everything starts in the soil. 95% of our food comes from the soil today, from the grass the cows eat to the potatoes we cook. So we need to keep the soil alive, active, and by predicting what is impacting positively in these bioactivities, then we can do it.
Interesting. So with this kind of data collection process, right? I mean, you mentioned that there was some public data available, and I imagine with that public data, right, you're using supervised learning. So that public data, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but probably it's labeled already, probably in a very good format for you to be able to train your algorithms. I'm curious, the process then with the actual farmers, right? What kind of data were they providing? Did you have to go through a cleanup process where then you also had to label their data so that you can combine it, organize it, combine it with the data that you were collecting from public sources?
Yeah, the initial work in the database to really segment and divide the data was very intense. Once we learn how farmers are used to send data, then right now it's very easy. Sometimes you find some resistances, but that was not one of the most, the higher challenges that we have faced. If you, one of the challenges was to deliver information that was very easy to understand. When we look at the first versions of the reports that we were sending to the clients for feedback at the beginning 2015, well, there was not value at all. No, we were not even able to develop this functional approach, compiling disease risks, stress and hormone adaptation factors, nutrient mobilization, all the pathways that are relevant. When we learn about that, we have the system ready, then we started to talk to our clients in a way that the value that they receive from the service that we provide was very, very good, very adjusted. And now we have a very good feedback from all of them.
Yeah. So when you say that, is what you're saying that you had to learn how to communicate whatever you learned to the client? So basically the recommendations you would make, the predictions that you were making for the adjustments that the client should ultimately make, there was a way that you had to communicate that, or even if you're making a report, how you need to visualize that data, those recommendations, so that they can internalize that and make changes?
Yeah, because one thing is what we do internally, which is very cool, as you can imagine, no? and the team, but when you talk to the client, it happens to agriculture, but in any industry, well, they have a problem and they want to solve it. And here the problem was, okay, how can we connect literally the biology into our decision-making process, especially now that we have this new wave of bioactive biological products inputs available for us, but we still don't know how to use them. So this educational process was more into okay, you have now this data, which is completely new. Here is how our clients have been using in the past and the experiences that they had. Have your own experience, give us feedback, and help us to really keep educating ourselves and all the work, especially agronomists, on this. Because when you go to the agronomy school, usually everything is about how to deal with the chemistry in agriculture. That's the current, not the current, but has been the traditional way to approach agriculture. Now it's a little bit different. So we need new tools. And the good thing is that combining genetics and artificial intelligence, we can get a new tool that helps agronomists a lot on these decisions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if we were to go back to kind of this data collection, your data strategy, right? I'm curious, obviously, that process of collecting all the data, cleaning all the data, preparing it for training the model, you mentioned it was intensive. I'm curious if that was a process that you did internally. Did you label the data within your internal team? Did you leverage other vendors to do that?
Actually, we outsource some developments, but more on the front side, not on the back end. Everything that we have done at the back, we have do it ourselves. I can say that we have an amazing team that is growing, and now we have a data science team that is especially working in a learning progressively more and speeding up this learning process, that they are working very good. So today there are 12 people in the team, and well, they work together very well. We have done everything internally. Actually, we have also some patents in the process, and because we really like to get public exposure and comments, feedback, we have so many academic collaborations as well. We share what we do and we receive feedback, and there is always a way to improve what you do. So you have to keep always active.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm curious about, right, is I think the average person thinks a farmer thinks, hey, look, I got this ranch, I've got a farm, and I'm growing crops on that farm. But there's also companies, corporations that own farms as well. What's the average customer look like? Is it that kind of that family farm? Is it that you're working with a larger corporation who's industrialized the farming process?
So today we work a lot with agronomists, and usually, let me say, an agronomist deal with an average of 20 to 50 farms, so small, medium-sized farms. They are the advisors. They tell them what they have to do according to the data that they are collecting. We work with them very actively, and we also work with what we call corporate farms, because they have their own agronomy department. They are the ones who has to make decisions for a very large field or operation. And this is like the average clients. Something unexpected, and I can tell you, and we learned about this last year. We mentioned this large corporation in the ag input sector, so ag input manufacturers. We have created an adaptation of our product or our service where we can, it's a specific program where you do like a control block, treated block before and after the application of a specific product. And here the goal is not to learn about the soil, it's about learn about the product, the input that you are using. So imagine now we have on one hand the diagnosis on the field, we know the biological status of the soil, and on the other hand, we know the bioactivity of the different inputs that are available, which there are so many products and some of them works very well, some others doesn't work, don't work as well as we expect or they say, and other works under certain situations. There is a lot of uncertainty. Eventually, if you have this data and you have this data, what we have done last year and we validate from the technical point of view, and now we are doing the market validation to see how we monetize, is a recommendation system. So imagine if our system is not just able to predict when or what is the room for improvement that you have, but also which is the specific product, the specific input that is going to help you to perform this. This is going to change the rules on how we farm today or how we choose the products. this is our goal. Probably we're like 1.5 years far from being in the market with this product, but this is the way we are following.
Yeah, no, that's actually very interesting, because it's one thing to be able to develop the reports and say, here's what we think you should do, but to take it the next step and say, and here are the products that help you get there. And I don't know, you guys may not have this on the roadmap, but you become a marketplace for those products as well. But that's an entirely different story.
How we market it, that's something we need to find out. But the reality is that from the technical point of view, that is possible. So data-driven decisions in agriculture based in obviously artificial intelligence and everything around a bioindicator, which is the soil microbiome. So that's the magic of the business model, and that's the reason because I get so excited about what we do.
Well, it's nice. It's nice to have folks who get excited about soil analysis, right? And it's not top of mind for most of us.
Well, at the end, it's not just that I love technology, I love startups, but also it makes a lot of sense to develop this kind of technology before. And when it comes to human drugs, for instance, there are so many experiments, studies to learn what is the effect of the vaccine or of the drug. But in agriculture, there was not a way to really know this, and now there is, and we have been the one bringing this. And what we really love is that, well, if you look at our team, we are 38 people at this moment, and there are genetists, there are software engineers, there are data scientists, there are microbiologists, there are agronomists. So there is a very strange mixture of skills that they talk each other, they understand each other, and they are able to build what we have built, and having fun, working really hard, because at the end you sometimes navigate in the shadows, so you don't have much reference. But being successful and then see that it has an impact. So when we help a grower, we tell them, hey, how was it? So you use our results to change your practices. Did you get did better? And they say, well, I got 20% yield increase because I have this problem. I didn't knew about it, and now I knew. I repair it, and now I'm better. That's incredible. This is something we need, and also to care for the soil, because why we have a virus right now running around the world freely? Probably it's because we have damaged a little bit the biodiversity, and soil biodiversity or soil microbiome is the largest reservoir of microbes in the world. So yeah, probably caring for the soil is going to help us beyond feeding the planet.
Yeah. Now, right, are you currently working primarily with farms in a particular region? Have you gone global?
Yeah, today we have 700 clients from 35 countries. Our main market is US. That's where we have more penetration. Now we are, well, last year we became very active in Midwest, all the large row crops like corn, soya, wheat as well. We are very successful also in specialty crops, potatoes, strawberries, trees as well. And well, Europe is the second market. We are very active. We have a subsidiary in Spain. Also, we have a well lab there, and we're running on. And Latin America is becoming very active as well. Many people is coming to us, especially Central America.
There we go.
From Colombia to Mexico, we're increasing the number of clients that contact us. Well, this is happening very quick, actually.
Yeah, obviously it's the use case, the problem that you guys have tapped into, right, is something that any country is going to be able to relate to, and everyone has their own crop, right? So if they can do better with that, obviously there's a case for them to be reaching out to you. And then, so when you all got started, you and your co-founder had already known each other, if I understood correctly, from a previous business. You connected with, was this an accelerator that helped you to get off the ground in California, the one who brought you guys over from Spain?
Well, Alberto and me knows each other since we were 5 years old. We were
Oh, wow.
practicing judo together, so we have been friends since then. But in 2010, we decided to start doing business together. He's a PhD in molecular biology, and I'm a bachelor in economic science, a master in environmental technologies. So we decided to leverage our skills and build this first company I mentioned before. And because we come from an area in Spain where agriculture is very important. Well, León is called the Midwest of Spain because the corn acreage. So there's a lot of corn. And we've seen progressively that there has been a degradation on the landscape, on the environment because of farming practices. And we didn't know why, because from time to time, we were not allowed to drink the water because there were some problems with the chemist load in the water, chemical load in the water. We were aware that, well, probably farmers don't have the tools that they need to solve this kind of issues. And this is money that they are losing because the fertilizers are going underground, even deeper, not to the phreatic level, and then goes to the water that we drink, which is. And when we have the opportunity to enter into the Illumina Accelerator, that was like, okay, now we have the chance to do this big and in the best place, because the Bay is biotech is turning into the biotech. It's very active, both the investment community, but also the talent that you find around. And agriculture in California is obviously one of the key sources of income. So that was like the perfect spot to start. From there, well, we have been very lucky and very successful to engage with very good investors in the way to support us and to back us.
Okay.
And from there,
you've raised the seed round already?
Seed round and Series A. We did Series A in 2019. At total, we have raised 8.5 million.
Okay. Awesome. And what was for you that process of raising capital? Did you all go out into the market and say, hey, look, let's talk to any investor that's willing to have this conversation? Or was it more of a targeted approach where you needed to have folks who may have been focused on biotech so they can actually understand what the issue is you're trying to tackle?
Well, let's say that as a startup, you get an adaptive behavior, right? We're tackling with different technologies and bring value to another sector, which is agriculture. So it's not pure biotech, it's not pure IT, it's not agtech. So it's a mixture of everything, no? And this is what makes us special. But when talking to investors, that make it a little bit more difficult, because usually VCs or professional investors, they have a specialization. The good thing is that more and more VCs are turning into impact investment, sustainability values. They are looking at these variables because at the end, if they are in charge of helping to bring new technologies to solve problems, they have realized that money is important. It's not, but it's not just about money. It's about how we are looking forward, how we look at the future. And because of that, it's been easier. And well, in 2017, I can tell you that it was harder than in 2019. In 2021 probably is even easier, because everything that is happening, we see that, well, we need to really use technology to solve key problems, core problems for humanity.
Yeah, and right now I'm thinking about some of the partnerships that actually help you get off the ground, right? So for you guys, the VCs are one. They can provide a source of capital, and for certain folks, they're able to provide some answers from an operational perspective, right? What technology should you be using? Right.
Experience of building business. I'm glad to say that I can call our investors and ask them any question on the business whenever I have a doubt or an analysis, and they give me an approach that probably was not so obvious for me, because they have so many experiences with the startup. They have seen so many cases. So probably one case has happened in another startup in a completely different field that can be valuable to you. Yeah. So for us, accelerators have been crucial for success because they have connected us to the ecosystem. And they have also teach us a lot or help on technology development. All the accelerators we have passed through investors, but what has helped us a lot and the most, I will say, the clients. So talking to the clients, giving their feedback, people is very open to really test something that is new and give you transparent and honest feedback. And this is how you learn. If you talk to them about artificial intelligence, so on, it's like, oh, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
But if you learn how to really solve problems and bring value, then you have something that is meaningful.
Yeah, and I imagine they're more than willing to give you feedback on what you're doing because they're the winners. Ultimately, they're the winners in whatever you do, the improvements that you make with that feedback.
Yeah, we always say we are enablers, and here our goal is to really empower farmers by developing, we call it neural biocomputing applications. So now we have the system, and now we need to see which kind of values we can deliver.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, I definitely want to be conscious of time here. Couple more quick questions. What has been your favorite tech tool to use inside of the company?
Favorite tech tool? Well, when we started to have enough amount of data and we start to use these algorithms like the lasso and the Bayesian regression, and then see the variables that, well, let's say, having sense on the data that we were dealing beyond the obvious, that was when we really make a step forward. So decoding the ecological relationships is not easy. Predicting and model these relations is extremely difficult. But I would say those are the two elements that, well, it change a little bit or make our life easier, and we give a qualitative step that now we can see it.
Okay. And last question here, who has been an inspiration for you, either in artificial intelligence or in business in general?
Oh, wow. Well, one person that I will, if you make that question that I was unprepared for that, it's the former CTO of Illumina. It's Mostafa Rognagi. It's I will say our mentor, because he was the first one to trust the Alberto and me. He has been an extremely valuable asset on the guidance and advice that he has given us on technology, and what is more important, how to find the people and the partnerships to get wherever you want to go. So it's not about some specific sectorial or technical knowledge, but it's about the guidance on where to look for solutions. So this methodology and this approach and how to be always positive about everything that happens to you, building a startup is something recommendable.
Yeah,
But
he saved
not
you. He
for
saved you a
everybody.
lot of time and money.
No, but it's a journey that you can imagine. It's, well, like a roller coaster, and you have to be prepared for that. And having somebody positive close to you, like taking you up when you're down, and also keeping you aligned when you are very happy, that's very useful. So that will be the
Absolutely.
person, and probably Alberto agrees with me. That has been
Okay.
very inspirational.
Awesome. Well, look, I love the use case here. Love that AI is being used to create some social good, is being used to improve the things that we actually ingest into our bodies, right? So definitely appreciate you taking out some time to speak with us. For folks who want more information, where can they find you? Where can they find the company?
We have a website called biomemakers.com. So the product, the technology that we have created for agriculture is called Bcrop. So if you search for this in any browser, you will find us. We're very approachable. So anybody who wants to contact or has a very interesting discussion about technology, agriculture, life, whatever, we'll be happy to do that.
All right, awesome. Well, excited about you guys, Scale, and definitely look forward to keeping up to date and having you back later on for an update.
Perfect. Darius, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk. I had a lot of fun. That was something that usually people don't ask us to talk about the AI that we do. It's something I really appreciate.